This episode of Lex Out Loud is brought to you by the patrons of Starwalker Studios. Learn how you can support the show at lexstarwalker.com/support. Hello and welcome to episode 46 of Lex Out Loud, writing science fiction. I'm your host, Lex Starwalker. This podcast is for writers, readers, and all lovers of speculative fiction. I'm writing my second novel, my first sci-fi novel, and I am taking you along for the ride. And welcome back to the show, everyone. I know for most of you, it's only been a week since the last episode, but for me, it's been a bit longer. I've been producing the episodes ahead of time, and I think it's been a couple weeks now since I produced an episode. My little intro actually isn't quite right today, and well, first thing, I discovered that my intro hasn't been quite right all along. All along, I've been saying that I've been working on my third novel. And it turns out that technically I've been working on my second novel. I started wondering about this a while ago, and the other day I went and opened up my earlier writings, and it turns out that what I had been thinking was my first novel, when I went and opened the document and looked at the word count, actually technically was a novella. If I remember right, it was 30-some thousand words, which is a novella, not a novel. However, my last novel was a novel. It was a monster. It was over 130,000 words. Obviously, back then, I had no clue what the proper length of a novel was, or I would have never written one that was so long. So the book I've been working on throughout this podcast is actually technically my second novel, not my third, because the first one was a novella. But, you know, those are semantics. But from now on, I'll try to get it right. The other reason that the intro is not correct today is I have a very important and exciting announcement to make. I have finished the first draft of my novel. In fact, I finished it 2 weeks ago. So all along, I had been hoping to finish it by the end of this year, and I actually finished it by the end of November. And once again, I attribute this to my writing goal of 1,000 words per day. And I won't harp on that yet again today, but the proof is in the pudding. And I truly believe, and it's been my experience, that the most important thing when it comes to finishing a novel is to write consistently every day and to set a daily writing goal that is realistic for you, a number that you can hit, I would say, fairly easily every single day. It's very tempting to shoot for the moon or shoot for the stars and try to set yourself a really large word count writing goal that you want to do every day, especially if you're someone who does or has thought about doing NaNoWriMo, you know, that if you're trying to do that, if you're trying to write 50,000 words in 30 days, that leads to some pretty large word counts that you need to crank out every day. And so it's really easy to get sucked into this idea that you need to get these big numbers that you can brag about how many words you wrote today. But writing a novel is a marathon, not a sprint. And yeah, you're far better served setting a goal that is smaller, that is something you can consistently reach every day and hit that goal every day and keep going and sit down and do the work every single day, than shooting for a larger number that is more difficult, that you can't realistically hit on a regular basis, and getting discouraged and not writing every day, which is what was happening to me before I changed things around. I originally had a goal of 2,000 words and it wasn't working. But I'm not going to say any more about that because I've talked about that a lot on the show. I'm sure I'll talk about it again, but that's not what I want to talk about today. So if you're new and you're curious about that, go check the previous episodes, and I've done some episodes all about that. So yes, I finished the first draft 2 weeks ago. I was really, really excited. about that. Finished it right around Thanksgiving, right before Thanksgiving, actually. So I was able to enjoy Thanksgiving without with having my first draft done. That was awesome and felt really good. And yeah, I'm just really proud of what I've accomplished, and even more than finishing my second novel, I'm just proud of the fact that I set a goal and a strategy for myself, and I stuck with it, and I did it, and did the strategy by the numbers, and ended up exactly where I wanted to be, and got things done over a month sooner than I was hoping. And in the beginning, I thought that trying to finish this book by the end of this year was a very ambitious goal, and I was prepared for not reaching it. But as I got farther and farther in the book, especially once I switched my writing goal to 1,000 words and saw the progress I was making, it seemed more and more realistic. And indeed, I finished it by the end of November. So yeah, as far as what I'm doing now, or kind of what the plan and the strategy is going forward, I forced myself to take a 2-week break from just everything. I'm taking at least a 6-week break from this first book. So I'm going to wait at least 6 weeks from when I finish the book to when I will start revising it for the second draft. And the reason for that is to cleanse my palate, so to speak, to get that book out of my mind so that when I sit down to read it and edit it, I can approach it more as something someone else wrote, and it's not so clear in my mind, so I can better see what's actually on the page and what isn't on the page, as opposed to what's in my head and what I think is on the page. Probably would be better to take 2 months instead of 6 weeks, and maybe that's what I'll do. But right now, I feel like it's going to be a struggle to get to 6 weeks. And it's so funny because through most of the process of writing this book, I've just been wanting to be done with it. Definitely the last half of it, I just really wanted to be done, wanted to finish it, just wanted to be done with it. And almost as soon as I was done, I started getting antsy and not knowing what to do with myself, and wanted to get started on the next one. But I told myself that I would take at least 2 weeks off before I started seriously working on the next book, just to give myself some time to recharge and refill my creative well, and all that. Writing as a novel has been compared to a lot of things. People often compare it to running a marathon. And, you don't run a marathon and then turn around the next day and run another marathon. You give yourself time to rest, and then after the marathon, and then train for the next one and all that. So it's the same kind of thing with writing a novel. Now, I have a feeling that as I write more novels, that downtime between novels will diminish until it's totally gone. Because like I said, it's going to be hard this time, even just to wait 2 weeks before I start seriously working on the next one. And in fact, today is 2 weeks to the day since I finished the novel. And I haven't really completely taken that 2 weeks off. I have thought a bit about the next book, in so much as I already know the characters I'm going to use. I already know the character arcs that are going to be involved with those characters, which are going to be subplots. So really the only thing I don't know as far as the next book is what the kind of general plot is going to be, or what the situation or the inciting element that's going to kick off the story is going to be. That's the one thing I haven't come up with. And honestly, I'm glad I haven't, because if I had, I'd probably already be writing it. And I do think it's good to take a break. But I'm just in this rhythm now of writing every day. And I've done so well with this. I don't want to lose my momentum. I don't want to lose these good habits that I've built up. But it is good to take a break. So before I talk more about that kind of stuff, I like to talk a little bit at the beginning of the show about what I'm reading, what I'm writing, things like that. I'm actually in between books right now, so I don't have a book to talk about right now. But I have 3 shows that I'm currently watching. and really enjoying. First is Dexter New Blood, which I mentioned on the show before, and I just wanted to revisit it briefly to say that I think I've watched the first 5 episodes now, and it's really getting going now. When I talked about it before, I said that it didn't quite capture the magic of the old show, and it hadn't really grabbed me yet. But things have taken off now. It's gotten interesting. It's clear to me where they're going, at least with the first season of this show. And now that I see where it's going, it's kind of obvious. Of course, that's what they would do. I'm kind of surprised I didn't anticipate this. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. And it is, that old magic is coming back. They're getting back into the swing of things. So I'm really enjoying that show. Recently finished Cowboy Bebop, the live action version that just came out on Netflix. And that show was awesome. I loved it. I think I saw 1, maybe 2 episodes of the anime because my wife is a big fan of the Cowboy Bebop anime. And I believe I watched the first episode of that with her and maybe the second because she wanted to see if I would get into it. And I wasn't into it. It just didn't do anything for me. I'm not a huge fan of cartoons in general, anime or otherwise. I loved them when I was a kid, but now that I'm all grown up, I much prefer live action. And yeah, it didn't hook me at all. But this show I really enjoyed. I loved the blend of genres that it has, kind of the noir genre blended with, a kung fu movie, blended with at times almost a kind of heist kind of thing, blended with just great comedy and, a little splash of Western here and there. I wouldn't say it really pulls from the Western genre, but there are some Western kind of set dressings in it. But I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was really funny. It was really entertaining. I loved the soundtrack. The music in it was fantastic. And I am just totally on board for more Cowboy Bebop. And now that I'm talking about it, I realize that there's actually another show that I've been watching that I completely forgot about and I'm not really going to talk about. And that's Star Trek Discovery. I don't even know what season we're in now. Yeah. Star Trek Discovery is just blown out of the water by Cowboy Bebop. Much better space opera, in my opinion. I don't know. I've kind of enjoyed every season of Star Trek Discovery less than the one before. I'm not really going to go into it. I prefer to talk about things I like and talk about things that I'm learning from because they're doing things that I like or things I think they're doing right. I don't so much want to be negative and talk about things I don't like or things I'm learning from because I think they're doing things not so well. And I'm not going to say that Star Trek Discovery is a bad show. I mean, it's okay, but it's just, I don't know. I'm pretty ambivalent towards it. I watch it, but it's honestly at the bottom of my list right now. So I watch everything else I'm watching first before I get to Discovery. And yeah, when it comes to space opera I've seen recently that I really enjoyed, I mean, it's Cowboy Bebop. Yeah, Discovery's just, I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me. Now, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I am very much looking forward to. And I think that's going to be my kind of Star Trek. And I cannot wait until that comes out. So I've been watching Dexter. I guess I finished Cowboy Bebop. And it was funny. Cowboy Bebop, I could have, because it's a Netflix show. It all came out at once, all 10 episodes. I could have easily binged all those episodes in one day. But I forced myself to only watch, I think we only watched 1 episode per day just because I love the show so much that I wanted it to last as long as possible. I did the same thing with Only Murders in the Building, which I think I talked about on the show before too, which is another recent show that I just loved, could not get enough of. And in fact, I will probably watch that again. I think my wife and I will watch that again. She's going to get some time off over the holidays. And I think we'll watch Only Murders in the Building again at that time because I really want to see it again. That was a great show too. So the third show I've been watching and really enjoying is, of course, this won't shock anyone that's listening to the show for a while, the Wheel of Time. Just continues to be amazing. The end of the fourth episode blew my mind. I was moved to tears at least twice in that episode. And it wasn't even, it was cool because it wasn't even tears of sadness. It was more just tears of just things being so awesome and just the magnitude and impact of what I was seeing. It was just amazing. And some of these things that have been described in the books to see it realized on the screen, some of this kind of more high level stuff was just awesome and just makes me even more excited about what is to come. I try to avoid any kind of discussion of the Wheel of Time online other than in our Discord. But I don't go, anywhere online where people are talking about it because frankly, what little discussion of it I've seen just pisses me off because it seems to be dominated by people who supposedly love the books and are just bent because the TV show isn't exactly like the books. And, if you have valid criticisms of the show, that's great. But, someone who doesn't understand that you can't make a TV show exactly like a book, especially a series of books like The Wheel of Time, that's 14 volumes long, 15 if you count the prequel. And these volumes are almost all, if not all, over 700 pages. Some of them over 1,000, have dozens upon dozens of point of view characters and dozens more of supporting characters that have pretty major roles. You just cannot do that in a TV show. It's impossible. So I just have no patience for people who either don't get that or just don't care about that and are going to bitch about the show anyway, ignoring the realities of, what it takes to make a show like this and what's possible and what isn't. And considering what is possible and what can be done, so far, this show is, I think, the best they could have possibly done with it. And I'm just constantly amazed and blown away with the quality of the show and the choices they're making. Every single thing that they've done differently than the books, which there is a lot, I've completely been on board with. It's obvious to me why they're making the choices they made, why they had to make those choices, and they were the right choices. So that being the case, they are moving through certain elements of the story much, much more quickly than you do in the books. I mean, I think we're only 4 or 5 episodes in to the 8 episode first season. And already we've seen things happen that I don't think happened in the books until like the 4th or 5th or 6th book. But there are reasons for that. And one of those things, and I'm not going to give spoilers, but at the end of the 4th episode, there's something that happens with the character Nynaeve that doesn't happen until, well, actually, it doesn't happen exactly like that at all in the books. They kind of took some license there, but it was super cool. But those kinds of things don't happen with Nynaeve until much, much later in the story. But it was the right choice to do it now, because if they just made the show based on the first book, The Eye of the World, and they just followed it scene for scene, even if they skipped some chapters here and there, the show wouldn't make it through a first, they do the first season and that would be it. The show would get canceled because unfortunately the reality is, people who watch TV don't have very long attention spans, and you have to hook them right now and you have to keep them hooked. You kind of have to have something big and exciting happen pretty much every episode, at least in the beginning of a series. And, so they had to have something big and exciting, or a few big and exciting things happen in this first season to hook people in so that they could make more seasons so we could see the cool stuff that comes later. And yes, they could have done the prologue from the first book, which they skipped, and that would have been something big and cool and amazing. But then we would have never seen anything else to do with that for multiple seasons of the show. So obviously they can't do that. That wouldn't have worked. So they needed to do something else. So their solution, or one of their solutions, was to kind of have some things happen with Nynaeve that in the books don't happen till later, just to give us a taste of what we're in for. And It was awesome. If you've seen the fourth episode, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the last thing that happens in that episode. It's the thing that made you go, oh, holy shit, this just went to a whole nother level. Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. And that whole thing, that whole scene is actually things that didn't happen in the books. They happened before the Eye of the World happened in the books. It was kind of background. So it's kind of cool that we're getting to see some things that we didn't actually get to see in the books. We just kind of heard characters talk about. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, I love the show. If you like fantasy and you haven't checked it out, check it out. You won't be sorry. It's awesome stuff. I can't wait to see more of it. All right. So I apologize if things seem a little out of order today. A lot of this episode was going to be kind of off the cuff anyway. And then I forgot to print out my outline. So I'm just winging it and kind of doing it by memory. And, I was going to improvise a lot of it anyway. So apologies if things are a little out of order of the way I normally do things. But I wanted to let you know that this is going to be this is the finale episode for season 2 of the show. And so this will be the last season 2 episode. And this is going to be the last episode of this year, 2021. So the next time you hear from me, as far as on Lex Out Loud, will be next year, 2022. I don't know exactly when I'll be back. Or right now, I'm thinking I'll probably get back to the show sometime in January. But I don't know. Might be February. I don't know. Things are all kind of up in the air right now because, again, I just finished this kind of 2-week break that I took. And so now I'm going to start working on ideas for the next book I want to write. And then sometime probably in January or maybe in February, if I can make myself wait, I am going to start editing the book I just wrote. So at that point, I'm going to be writing one book, editing another book. And then I'm also going to, I've already started doing this, but I'm going to continue looking for various things I can do to help me prepare the book I just wrote to start submitting to agents. So I'm going to be doing things like looking for workshops I can take to help improve my skills as a writer and as an editor and to help directly improve this book I just wrote. I'm going to be looking into contests I can enter. I'm mainly going to be focusing on contests that I can enter with part of my novel that I just wrote. But there's a particular contest for novellas that I would really like to enter if I can come up with a novella to write. So I'm going to be doing those things. I'm also, at some point, I need to figure out a writing group. So, I'm going to look for a writing group, but I think the chances of me finding a writing group already existing that's going to be what I'm looking for are probably pretty low. So I'm prepared for the likelihood that I will have to create my own writing group, and who knows how long that will take. I am going to look locally, but where I live, Bellingham, Washington, it's a really small town. So there are 2 or 3 writing groups in town, or at least there were before COVID, that I know of. But I don't know that they're going to serve my needs. Only one of them, I think, has a chance of doing so because I think there are some people doing sci-fi in there. But I think there are also people doing very different things. So, I'll give it a shot, but I don't have high hopes of finding a group locally. Maybe I can find one online, but if not, I'll have to start my own. And if I start my own, it will most definitely... I was going to say most likely and then decided to say definitely and ended up saying most definitely. It will probably be online. Because again, this is a very small town. And I think the odds of me finding 3 or 4 other sci-fi writers who are kind of near my level as far as experience and skill and seriousness, which is the most important thing. People are actually serious about this and not just hobbyists or whatever. And also have a manuscript they want to workshop that they then want to submit. The odds of finding that are pretty much zero, I think. But I'll try just in case. Maybe I'll get lucky. But chances are good I'm going to have to find people online, which honestly I think will be fine. I've been thinking about it. And I mean, yeah, there's something to be said about being in the same room with people. But the way that writing groups work, I don't think it's really going to hurt things that much to do it online, to do it over something like Zoom or Skype or Google Meet or whatever, you want to use, or even Discord, some kind of video chat. I think it will be closer to the experience of being in person than playing Dungeons and Dragons is. And I've played a lot of D&D and other tabletop RPGs online. The big downside with playing a tabletop RPG online is you can't really have crosstalk, which is where you have multiple people talking at the same time. If we're playing D&D in a room together and we have 3 people all talking at once, you can hear what all 3 people are saying and you can pay attention to all 3 of them if you want to. But when you're on something like Discord, that doesn't work. The software will choose one voice that everybody hears and the other people get cut off. So you can't have multiple people talking at once. And that can be a real drag when you're talking about tabletop RPG. But really, in a well-run writing group, it's rare to almost never that you would have that happen. And usually when that would happen, like one of those 2 people should shut up and let the other one talk. So I really don't think there'd be much downside to doing a writing group online. And there are a lot of benefits to it. Namely, you have a much larger pool of people to pull from, of potential people for your writing group, which makes it more likely that you can find people that are a good fit and people that fit your schedule and all that stuff. And also get maybe some more diversity in your writing group than you would if you just used people who were local. So yeah, that's probably what I'll be doing. So yeah, I'm going to be looking for contests and looking to probably start a writing group as well as editing a book while I'm writing another book. And another thing I'm going to be doing is possibly looking for and applying for some grants and scholarships. Just anything I can do to help myself succeed, help myself get this book as good as it can be so I can entice an agent with it and get it published at a major publisher. Because that's what I want to do. Yeah, it's occurred to me. I'm going to do some episodes about this kind of stuff in season 3, but it's occurred to me, I'll mention it right now, that maybe I haven't been explicit enough on this show about exactly what I'm doing and exactly where I'm coming from as a writer, because there are a lot of different approaches you can take to writing. Even if we're talking about writing novels, even if we're talking about writing science fiction novels, we drill down that far, there are different approaches you can take. Some people self-publish. Some people publish with a vanity press or a small press. Some people, shoot for the moon or shoot for the stars and go for one of the big 4 publishers. And there are variations of those things as well. And I don't know that I've ever explicitly said exactly where I'm coming from there. So I'm wanting to get published with a major publisher. I don't want to self-publish. I don't want to publish with a small press. I want to publish with a publisher that you've all heard of and that you've all read books from, because I want to do this for a living. I want to be able to make money doing it enough that I don't have to work a day job and I can pay the bills. And that's the best way to do that. And also the other side of it is I want as many people as possible to read what I write. I very much want to, if possible, leave this world better than I entered it, even if it's in a small way, in some way. And since I've dedicated myself to being a writer, the best way to accomplish that is to, get my book in front of as many people as possible. So, that's pretty important to me. And, I think that the book I just wrote and the books that I will write in the future have some good messages within them and have some good thoughts and ideas that I think some or a lot of people would benefit from. So the more exposure I can get, the better the chances of actually making some kind of a difference in the world. And, I'm probably not going to do that if I just publish it by myself and sell, a few dozen or a few hundred copies. So that's what I'm going for. I'm trying to get published with a major publisher. So, that's where I'm coming from. Whenever I start talking about my strategy or why I do what I do or how I do what I do, that's where I'm coming from. So there can sometimes, I think, be a disconnect with people if they don't understand that. And, maybe I'm talking to someone who, for instance, self-publishes. It's a completely different, it's a completely different world. If you're self-publishing, everything's different. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. And then the other thing that I think, if you've listened to all 46 episodes, I think you probably know that I want to be published with a big publisher. But the one thing that I don't think I've been explicit about that I should have from the beginning, and part of this was because until recently, I didn't really understand completely this distinction myself, is I should really let everyone know that I am endeavoring to write commercial fiction. I'm not trying to write literary fiction. I have zero desire to write literary fiction or even upmarket fiction, to be honest. I want to write commercial fiction. And I want to write not just commercial fiction that will sell well among a science fiction audience, but ideally, I'd love to write commercial fiction that sells well among just everyone, period. Science fiction it's weird because it seems right now like, at least if you talk about like TV and movies, it seems like sci-fi is really popular right now and is maybe the most popular it's ever been. I mean, there are so many just awesome sci-fi shows on TV right now. Well, at least space opera. There's not much as far as hard sci-fi, but space opera, it's everywhere. But at least when it comes to books, it very much seems to me that among the genres of fiction, even within speculative fiction, that sci-fi is maybe the least popular. I mean, fantasy is definitely way more popular than sci-fi, and I feel like even horror is more popular than sci-fi. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't have any numbers to back that up. That's just my opinion. That's just my feeling from what I see out there. I was just thinking today how frustrating it is, how many times I see, online some list of, here's the best sci-fi books from this year or whatever. And you go look at the list and over half the books are actually fantasy, not sci-fi. It's so hard to find a list of just sci-fi books. It's always got fantasy in it. And it's hard to find really good sci-fi books, especially ones that aren't space opera, which nothing against space opera. But, at least for me personally, for my personal taste, a lot of the space opera out there is way too far into the fantasy realm for my personal taste, what I'm really looking for when I want to read sci-fi. I don't necessarily want to read hard sci-fi, but, I don't really want to read either space opera that's really just fantasy with sci-fi tropes and trappings kind of laid over the top, but it's really just fantasy. I like a little more realism, which is why, I want sci-fi. I want that level of realism. So, it just seems to me that sci-fi is far less popular than the other genres. So, again, going back to my thing of, wanting as many people as possible to read what I write, I've chosen to write in a genre that is kind of niche. So I'd really like to write books that you don't need to be a sci-fi fan to enjoy and like and recommend to your friends. So that's what I'm trying to do. Whether or not I'll succeed, time will tell. So yes, I'm trying to write commercial fiction, which my understanding grows every day. But my understanding as of now is that commercial fiction is kind of one big category, and then your other big category is literary fiction. And then you have upmarket fiction, which is kind of in between the two. Upmarket fiction's like your book club books. it'd be great if I wrote a book that I thought was commercial fiction and that was received as well as commercial fiction, but people considered it a market fiction and read it in their book clubs. That'd be fantastic. But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to write a book that anyone from a 15-year-old to an 80-year-old could read and relate to and enjoy. I'm not trying to be pretentious. I'm not trying to show everybody how smart I am or, try to be a poet or anything like that. I just want to tell a good story that people will like and enjoy. And maybe, just maybe at some point, make them think about something they haven't thought about before, or think about it in a way they haven't considered before. If I manage that, I'd be very happy. So yeah, I feel like those are two things that I probably in the very first episode of this show, I should have made very clear that my goal is to be published with a big publisher, and my goal is to write commercial science fiction. So maybe. I don't know. I'm wanting to kind of change up the show a bit. So maybe I can think of a way to make that more clear on a more regular basis. Because, I mean, honestly, until very recently, I don't think I really knew what commercial fiction was or what that term meant. And I went down a rabbit hole a few weeks ago trying to wrap my brain around all these terms that editors especially use, referring to different types of fiction. And that's when the light bulb went on, and I'm like, oh, commercial fiction. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. And so everything that I talk about on the show comes from that point of view, comes through that lens. So for instance, I've said before on the show that good prose should be invisible. That's a commercial fiction kind of thing. If you're writing literary fiction, then you may not want your prose to be invisible. You might want to call attention to your prose and impress people with how beautiful and artful your prose is, which, if you can do that and people want to read it and enjoy reading it, that's awesome. Good for you. But that's not what I'm trying to do. And honestly, I don't know that I'd be capable. I don't think I'd be capable of doing that, but that's not what I'm trying to do. So it's kind of cool how this show's kind of panned out. I didn't exactly plan it this way. I kind of hope that each season would kind of have its focus. And I was thinking that would kind of align with what I'm currently doing. But I didn't realize how well that kind of structure would work, because in the first season of the show, I was world building for this book I just wrote. So I talked about a lot of world building and about the world I was building, or the world isn't a great term. That's a great term for things other than sci-fi that only take place on one world. But solar system building, it just doesn't roll off the tongue. But the first season was all about the setting. There's the word I should use, the setting I was creating. And then now the second season, I've been writing the first draft of this first book. And so that's kind of been a lot of what I've been talking about. And now for the third season, I'm going to be, editing this book I just wrote. I'm going to be starting a new book, writing a first draft of a new book, maybe at some point in there trying to write a novella, and also trying to find people to critique my book, a writing group, alpha readers, beta readers. Oh, I forgot when I was saying all the things I was going to do. I also need to find alpha and beta readers. And, I might at some point hire an editor once I've taken my book through a writing group and alpha and beta readers. I may at that point hire a professional editor to go over it for me so that I can really get it as good as I can, and then start submitting to agents. So I think season 3 is just going to last the entirety of year 2022. So it'll be a pretty eclectic season because I'm going to be doing all of those things. And then I hope by the end of this next year to be at the point where I can start sending out queries to agents and trying to find an agent. I've actually already started making a list of agents I want to send to and publishers I want to be published with. So I'm a little ahead of the game as far as that goes. But there's a lot of work to be done before I'm ready for that. And, that's something I'm learning now is there are so many aspects to being a writer. And a very big one is self-discipline. And there's so many areas where you need self-discipline. You need the discipline to write every day. You need the discipline to set your goal every day and to stick to it. You need the discipline to finish the novel that you've started. But there's other things you need discipline for. For instance, you need the discipline, and I need the discipline to not send out queries to agents until the novel is really ready. You don't query an agent with your first draft or your second draft or even your third or your fourth draft, not if you want to succeed. So that's where I'm at now. I mean, just having the discipline to take this novel through every possible step I can, everything I can do, every contest I can submit to, every writing group I can submit to, getting alpha readers, getting beta readers, just doing all that and having the patience and the discipline to do that and not submit before it's ready. So yeah, wish me luck on that. It's probably going to be a while before I'm ready for that. Because again, the first step will be, first I'm going to edit it at least once or twice myself. And then I will be taking it to a writing group. And I mean, the writing group process may take as long as a year. Because I think as of now, with the first draft, I think there are 33 chapters. And assuming I find a writing group that meets every week, if we do a chapter a week, that's 33 weeks. That's almost a year. And that's if we don't take any weeks off for holidays or things like that. So, it may be a while before I need alpha and beta readers, but someday I will. So I thought today, just to kind of wrap up the show for this season, for this year, and to kind of celebrate and acknowledge that I've finished this book that I've been talking about for 46 episodes now, for a little over a year now on this show. I just thought I'd talk about kind of where I'm at right now. So, I mean, first of all, like I said, it feels really good to be done. It really does. There's so many times in the process of writing this book, I just wanted to be done with it. And it's not so much a thing that I didn't enjoy writing it. I mean, I will say for me, every writer's different, I think. I know a lot of writers seem to really hate editing. But for me, the hardest part of writing a novel is the first draft. Compared to that, editing is easy for me. I have a really gross, crude analogy for that I don't think I'll say because I don't want people to think less of me. I need to come up with a better analogy that I can tell in mixed company. But maybe I'll have to come up with something better. But for now, I'll say it's a lot easier to polish a statue that you've already carved than it is to carve the statue to begin with, right? For me. For me, the first draft is the hardest part. And once that's down, taking that and making it better, relatively speaking, is easy. Which is not to say it's easy, but compared to that, it's easy. It's much easier for me. I'm tempted to say it's more fun. And for my last novel, my first novel, it definitely was. I enjoyed revising and editing that book a lot more than I did initially writing it. But I wrote that book much more as an outliner, as a planner. I had a very detailed chapter by chapter, scene by scene outline that I made before I wrote the book. And I followed the outline as I wrote the book. And if I changed something, I changed it in the outline first and then wrote according to the outline. This book, I wouldn't go so far as to say I discovery wrote the whole thing, because I definitely, would come up with kind of a game plan for each day, kind of scene by scene. And I did have some ideas of where I wanted it to go ultimately. But compared to how I wrote the last one, it was much more discovery writing. And I enjoyed writing the first draft a lot more than the last one. I enjoyed discovery writing. And I think I've said on the show before, I kind of had this eureka moment when I realized, at least for me, discovery writing is very similar to running a role-playing game. And I've made 2 separate podcasts with over 300 episodes between them, all about just GMing role-playing games, because I love it. It's one of my favorite hobbies or things to do in my free time is to GM a game like D&D. And for me, at least, that's what discovery writing is. It's very much almost the same exact thing. It's like running an RPG for yourself. And I had a lot of fun with it. And where the last book, Dawn of Endless Night, by the time I was halfway through that book, it was a real slog. And I did not write every day with that book. I just did so many things wrong when I wrote that book. I was all about high word count days and bragging about, how many words I'd written. And I would spend at best 1 or 2 days a week really seriously writing on the book. And yeah, in those 1 or 2 days, I would write, maybe 10,000 words or something. I don't know. But there were just a lot of days that I didn't write at all. And there were even weeks that I didn't write at all. I think it took me 1.5 years to write the first draft of that book. And by the end, I was not enjoying it. It was not fun. It was work and I did not enjoy it. And it really was hard to do the last half of it. This book wasn't like that. And I think it's because of the discovery writing, because the other book, I knew how it was going to end before I started it. It's like watching a movie you've already seen 3 times before. It's just not the same. There's not that excitement that you have the first time you see it and you don't know what happens next. And writing this book was more like watching a movie for the first time. I didn't know what was going to happen next. Sometimes I had a vague idea, but I wasn't married to that. And if the characters took the story in a different direction, I followed them where they took it. So there are all kinds of things that happened in that first draft that I didn't plan, didn't expect, and were a surprise to me. And that was a lot of fun. So even when I was in the last quarter of the book, I was still learning things and discovering things and having fun with it in a way that I very much wasn't in the last book. So that helped a lot. I think also, having a realistic daily writing goal and being able to consistently write every day, 6 days a week, and hit that goal every day and feel really good about what I was doing helped a lot. But despite that, despite how much I enjoyed writing it, I very much wanted to finish it. But it wasn't because I didn't enjoy writing it. It was just because I'm impatient. I want to get to the finish line. I want to submit this thing to editors. That's what I'm impatient for. There's so many times I've told my wife, I wish I could just fast forward to a year from now when it's gone through all the revisions and everything's done and it's as good as I can make it. And I'm sending out queries to agents. That's where I want to be. And hell, while we're at it, can we just fast forward to the point where I've been accepted by an agent and my agent has sold it to a publisher? Can we just go to there? Because that's really where I want to be. That's when I'll feel like I can not relax, but not be at such a high level of anxiety all the time. Not completely take my foot off the gas, but I don't have to have it floored completely the whole time anymore. But, you can't rush the process, right? And I know that, but that's what it was. I wanted to be done so that I could edit it, so I could submit it to agents, so I could get it published, so I could go on to the next book, all those things. And it's like, even now, I told myself I'm going to take at least 6 weeks off before I start editing this to get it out of my head, to kind of clear the buffer. So it's not, so I'm not remembering things that I was thinking when I wrote it, and I'm just reading it fresh. And it's really hard. Every day I want to get the thing out and just start editing it. I'm like, I want to put some red ink in my pen and I want to sit down with the manuscript and I just want to start editing. And every day I have to fight myself not to do that. Because I'm impatient. So that's why I wanted to be done with the first draft. So it was a huge relief when it was done. and it still is, but now I'm just chomping at the bit to get editing. And honestly, I think I'm going to have so much fun editing this book. I think doing the second draft is going to be a lot of fun. I think doing the third draft is going to be a lot of fun. I don't know how many drafts I'm going to do before I start wanting to take it to a writing group. At least 2, probably more, because I'm very much of the school of thought that each draft should have specific goals. You don't want to try to do everything all at once. So the first, what I'm thinking, and I'm going to spend more time researching this, see what other writers do, and thinking about how I want to approach this. But and it'd probably be a good thing to talk about on the show as I do that. But right now, what I'm thinking is this first edit that I do for the second draft, I'm just going to read it. And as I read it, I'm just going to note just obvious things I need to fix, like any kind of spelling errors, punctuation errors, descriptions that are lacking. That's going to be a big thing in this first read through. Is I'm going to make note anytime I think there's a description that should be there that isn't there. Because in the first draft, I don't do much describing of things. I'm just focusing on the plot and the dialogue and just kind of getting the broad strokes of what's happening. It's like I'm watching a movie and I'm trying to write down what's happening in the movie in real time. And so I can't write fast enough to catch every little detail. So I'm just getting the broad strokes in the hopes that later when I revise, I can fill in all the details that I didn't have time to write before, if that makes sense. So a lot of it's going to be just obvious stuff like spelling errors, punctuation errors, changing paragraph breaks, changing chapter breaks, things like that, as well as taking note of any time there's a description that should be there that isn't there. And then later I'll go write those and add those in. Another thing I'll be on the out for is redundancies, because especially in the first maybe quarter of the book, the way I didn't write the beginning of the book linearly, I wrote the chapters out of order. So I know there are certain things that are mentioned numerous times that should only be mentioned once. So I'll look for those and fix those. Any just really obvious glaring just problems with character or plot or anything like that. But the first edit is just going to be looking for that kind of stuff. The second edit for the third draft, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where I'll go from there. One of the last things I want to do in my editing before I take it to a writing group, and this will be the last editing pass I do by myself, is go through it and really look to tighten up the prose as much as I can. Get rid of passive voice when it shouldn't be there. Get rid of adverbs that shouldn't be there. Try to replace adverbs with better verbs. Try to replace adjectives with better nouns. Get rid of unneeded or extra words. Tighten up descriptions. Just do everything I can to make the prose really tight and concise, to say things as evocatively as I can in as few words as possible. That'll be an editing pass all by itself, just doing that. But before I worry about that, I'm going to do the more obvious stuff first. So I don't know if that will be editing pass number 3 or number 4 or number 5. I don't know. Those are things I need to figure out, and probably actually this next week is probably when I'm going to start thinking about that, because here in another month or so, I'm going to start editing. So I want to have a game plan, and I'm going to, specify what I do with each edit. And I can tell you right now that one of the first resources I'm going to check out is Brandon Sanderson, because between his podcast Writing Excuses and between he has a whole series of lectures that he did. He teaches a college level writing course at a university in Utah, I believe is where he is. And he's got a whole series of lectures from that on his YouTube channel, as well as other things on his YouTube channel. And Brandon does a really great job of explaining how exactly he does what he does. So I am sure, and in fact, I think I've heard it, I just don't remember it off the top of my head, but I'm sure that somewhere he goes into what specific things he does on his different editing passes. So I'm going to look for that, see what he does. I think Stephen King is another one that's talked about that. And just any other authors that I admire their work that I can find that talk about what specifically they do with each editing pass. And then I will take all that and synthesize it and figure out what I want to do. So yeah, I'm guessing I'll probably do 4 or 5 at least editing passes myself before I want to take it to a writing group. So I'm excited to do all that. And then the next thing after that will be the writing group. To be honest, I'm not terribly looking forward to having to put one together. It's going to be a lot of time and work, but I am looking forward to it in that, hopefully I'll meet some cool people and make some new friends. So that'll be awesome. And then I'm also, dreading, the writing group itself, because getting critiqued is really hard. Right now it wouldn't be so bad, but after I revise this thing in 4 or 5 times, it's going to be hard having people tear it apart, but it's necessary. And I definitely want to do it. And it's been a long time. It's been, I think, over a decade since I've been in a writing group. So it'll probably be like the first time again. And I remember what that was like, and it was not fun. But yeah, I'm going to do it because I got to do it. But yeah, that's something I'll be glad when it's over, or at least when I get to the point that I'm comfortable with it again. Because yeah, in the beginning, it's tough. But yeah, I'm also, I don't know, I'm a lot more self-aware now than I was then. Back then, I kind of thought I was a lot better than I was, where now I think my perception of how good I am as a writer is fairly realistic. And if anything, I'm underestimating my abilities, not overestimating. And I think that's when it's hardest to receive critiques, is when you are overestimating how good you are and you're having to face the harsh reality that you're not as good as you think you are. So maybe it won't be so bad this time, because hopefully I have a more realistic, or at least a more modest opinion of how good I am or how good I'm not. But yeah, I'm in all candidness, I'm not looking forward to the first few critiques. But yeah, it'll be nice to get through that and get beyond that and get to the point where I'm used to that again, and it's just water rolling off a duck's back again. That'll be nice. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So right now it's really just starting to think about my strategy for editing, brainstorming the next book, coming up with the inciting incident or the situation that's going to begin the book. I am going to, this second book, I'm going to discovery write as at least as much as I did this one. I'm actually going to probably try to do even more discovery writing than I did this time, because I just enjoyed it so much. And I feel like that's part of the way that I was able to write the first draft in 6 months, was that I didn't insist on planning and outlining everything ahead of time. And also, it just was more enjoyable, and it was easier to finish that way, because it was more new to me, and it wasn't, I wasn't sick of it long before I finished the book. It's kind of like, for those of you that are listening who are game masters and maybe haven't written a novel before, it's kind of like when you're running a D&D campaign, and at the very beginning of the campaign, you come up with this awesome idea for this high level encounter, but then you have to wait so long before the player characters are high enough level to run the encounter that by the time you're ready to actually run that encounter, you don't even care about it anymore, because it's just old news to you now. That's kind of how writing my first novel was when I wasn't discovery writing. It's like I knew how the book was going to end from the very beginning. And by the time I got there, I just didn't care anymore. I'd lost all my enthusiasm for it. So for me, at least, discovery writing, as much as possible, avoids that, because I didn't know how this book was going to end until I ended it. So I didn't have that feeling of, oh, I'm already tired of this and I haven't even written it yet, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing for the next few weeks. And then come January or February, I will start editing. And hopefully by then, I'll be writing the next book. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So Yeah, I don't know for sure when I will be back with season 3 because, yeah, I'm going to have a lot on my plate, a lot that I'm doing. And all this other stuff I'm talking about as far as working on the book is higher priority than this podcast, unfortunately. But, this podcast is on the priority list because this is an important thing too. So I will definitely be back. I don't think it'll be any later than February. I'd say chances are good. I'll be back sometime in January because I know me. If I go too long without podcasting, I get antsy. But I don't want to promise because I've never done this before, and I don't know. It's not so much a thing of time; it's a thing of energy and mental bandwidth. Well, it's also time too because my wife has helped me realize that I spend a lot more time working on these podcasts than I realized. And I've actually started tracking that. And once I started tracking it, I realized that I was spending about 4 times as much time producing these episodes as I thought I was. So it does take a lot of time. And that's time away from writing and everything else I got to do. But I enjoy it and I think it's important. So yeah, I'll be back. Not sure when, but soon. And in the meantime, I will be active on my Discord server. So if you haven't yet, please join my Discord server, and there you can keep up on what I'm up to and hang out with other listeners, and we talk about all kinds of stuff on there, from TV to movies to games to. I just started a cooking channel because I love cooking. We talk about all kinds of stuff, almost everything under the sun, I think. So yeah, we have a lot of fun on there. You can also follow me on Twitter at Lex Starwalker. I post on there quite a bit. I also just started a Facebook page. I know. I've been very anti-Facebook, and honestly, I'm still not a fan of Facebook. But it just seems like when it comes to writers and editors and agents and readers, that's where they are. For whatever reason, there's a lot of them on Facebook. And it seems like the best platform for writers to connect with other writers and editors and agents and as well as potential readers. So, I have to approach this as a business. So it's a necessary evil, even though it's not my favorite thing. And I have a lot of ethical issues with Facebook and how they do their business. I'm on there. I'm not really going to promote it much. But if you look for Lex Starwalker on Facebook, I'm sure you'll find me. You can follow me on there if you want. I don't have very many followers right now because I haven't been promoting it. My website, of course, lexstarwalker.com. I've started blogging again. I try to do a blog post every week. So far, the blog posts I've done recently are revisiting topics I've talked about on the show, just in a written form. So, if you've listened to every single episode of Lex Out Loud, there, as far as the recent blog posts, there's not really much new. But if you're a newer listener, it's probably a quicker, easier way to catch up on some of those topics than going through all the episodes. But in the future, I'll be talking more and more about other things other than what I talk about on the show. But I just wanted to get the blog going again. And I have talked about quite a few things on the show that would make good blog posts. So that I thought I'd start with the low hanging fruit first. I'm wanting to get, kind of a backlog of blog posts stored up. But so far it's been all I can do to just do one a week. But maybe now that I'm on a bit of a break, I can get some more blog posts written. But yeah, you can check that out at lexstarwalker.com. Links to the Discord server are in the show notes at lexstarwalker.com. And that's how you can keep up with me in the interim. Next time I talk to you, it will be 2022. So happy holidays and happy new year. I sincerely hope that 2022 is a much better year for all of us than 2021 was. I hope, everyone stays safe and healthy. And I hope to see you all again next year for season 3, to continue this adventure and journey of writing sci-fi, and hopefully one day getting published. Have great holidays and stay warm if you're in the Northern Hemisphere like I am. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, and enjoy the summer. I'm envious of you right now. Oh, I forgot. You can also email me at lexoutloudpodcast@gmail.com if you have any ideas for topics for season 3 or any questions you'd like me to answer. Feel free to email me or, shoot them to me in the Discord. I'd love to hear from you. If you just want to say hi or wish me luck on my endeavors. As challenging as this year was, the next year is going to be even more challenging. But I'm up for it, and I'm excited. I'm really excited and pumped up to keep going and see where this will take me. And finally, I just want to say that I'm really grateful to all of you who listen to this show. I really, really am. I mean, I don't I don't have the downloads that Game Master's Journey did, but when I started this show, I was prepared for having no listeners, honestly. I started out this show thinking I might have less than 10 subscribers, thinking that I might just be doing this for my own entertainment and just kind of a chronicle of my journey, almost like a journal, if you will. And I've been very, very surprised and grateful with the number of people that have been listening to the show. And especially, I don't know why, but especially in the past month or two, it's really grown. The listenership has really grown. I don't know how or why. So I'd love to hear from you. If you would be willing to take a minute out of your day and let me know how you discovered Lex Out Loud, how you found the show. If you're not someone that just came over from Game Master's Journey or GM Intrusions, I would love to know how you all are finding the show, because somehow people are finding the show. I don't know how, but I'm really grateful to every one of you, because I mean, I'm just an aspiring writer. I'm nobody special. I'm not Stephen King. I'm not Brandon Sanderson. I'm not Andy Weir. I'm not Neil Gaiman by any stretch. I'm just so glad that people are willing to listen to the show and getting something out of it and wanting to read the book when it comes out. I mean, that's just, I can't even really put into words how awesome that is, which is a really lame thing for a writer to say. I know, but I'm just speaking off the cuff here. If I sat down to write, maybe I could write words that would better express what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I just really appreciate all of you listening. So yeah, if you want to get me a present for the holidays, a great present would be just a quick little message to let me know how you found the show and also why you listen. If you like the show, let me know what you like about the show, why you like it. Because I really have no idea why people listen to the show, or if people get anything out of it. And if so, what you're getting out of it or why. So if you'd be willing to take a minute to tell me that, I'd love to hear it. And it will really help me in the future to make the show even better for you. Because I would love to improve the show by doing more of what you like, and giving you more of why you're here to listen to the show in the first place. Because I'm mystified. I don't know. I'm just really grateful that you're here and that you're listening. And yeah, it just makes my day every time someone tells me that, they can't wait for the book to come out, or they're going to buy the book when it comes out. Because yeah, that's music to a writer's ears to hear that people want to read what they're doing. So yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I hope you all stick around on the interim and you stay subscribed, and I will be back soon with another episode. And until then, enjoy the holidays, stay safe, appreciate your loved ones, and let them know what they mean to you. And by all means, please keep writing.